So today I am at the board because I want to go over a couple things. But before we even get there, I want to talk about PLP homeroom. You have to go into school's PLP homeroom and do the attendance every day. And if you've forgotten over the last week, I don't think I'm going to fail you, but I think we might have to. I'm going to talk to the principal, see if we have to take some points off. Please, that's not true. That's not true. Please, with everything in your being, please try to go on to PLP, school's PLP, and fill in the stuff. There's a couple things that are there. Number one, your attendance, but also the emotional side of things. We're getting ready to transition, and we want to make sure the students who have decided to go virtual are still doing well emotionally. And the students who are coming to school, well, we'll be face-to-face with them and we'll be able to talk to them. So
just making sure we're doing well emotionally.
Yeah, that's your job to make sure I'm doing okay.
Oh, okay. You're in big trouble, mister.
I know. Well, I'll tell you what, the idea of going hybrid is going to be a little crazy. So let's stick together and we can do this. School's PLP homeroom, make sure you do that. And then also, I think it was David. David made me aware that I failed to update my playlist, and he's correct, and I did fail. That's how we got started talking on what I did last night around 8 o'clock or 8:30. I just fell asleep. It was my job to do that, and I failed to do that. So I will do that shortly after today's session, and I'll do that shortly after today's session or during the lunchtime. I will update that. We'll be ready to go. The last thing I'll say before we start the class is the STAR test. Be sure to complete your STAR test by Wednesday. I can't not give the assignment that's going to be coming up because we're sort of playing on what we've already read. And I want you to see the video presentation of it, the theatrical presentation, and I want you to be able to compare those two. But so that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow and Wednesday for an assignment. But you also have to do your STAR test. So if you haven't already done it, please do it. Today we're going to do something sort of in practice in order to help us not only for tomorrow and Wednesday's assignment, but every answer you ever give as far as a short answer is concerned, or even a short answer. You will use what we're going to go over today every time you answer a question, okay? And so what we're looking at, and I'll see if I can pick this up and move it forward. That's on my camera, it looks really good, but this is what we're dealing with, okay? There are many ways to break this down. And what I want you to understand is you have to use this. You have to use this. Whenever you're asked a question that you have to type the answer, you need to really remember this. If right now you want to grab a sheet of paper and a pencil, feel free to do it. I'll do my best to create a document in which this can be yours through Google Classroom or something. But RACE, if you're ever asked a short answer, you need to remember this acronym. R stands for restate the question as a lead-in. A stands for answer the question. C stands for cite textual evidence. And then E, explain how the textual evidence that you just provided supports your answer. Okay, so that's sort of the fourfold process that we're going to use moving forward. And we're going to practice just mainly right now the first two. Okay, the first two, this is sort of like the introduction into 8th grade. And when I say the first two, I'll see if I can do this here. Just these first two today, because all we're going to focus on is how to use the question as the start of your answer. And now some of you guys might be thinking, well, we did this already. Well, if that's the case, I haven't been seeing it, and that's part of what we're doing today, because the next 3 to 5, for the rest of the year, you're going to be asked questions that you have to provide an answer, cite textual evidence, as well as explain how that all works. So Very, very complex, but if we break it down to RACE, you can do it. Again, today we're only looking at R and A. So I wrote a question down. This is very simple, okay? If I were to ask you, and I want you to feel free to answer however you think you would, but if I were to ask you, who is the author of the short story, The Telltale Heart, we would all answer Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, but that is not the answer that we need for 8th grade. Okay, so I'm gonna write in the chat, check it out. Who was the author of the short story, The Telltale Heart? Now you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I know the answer to that. I know the answer. Yeah, you might be thinking to yourself, Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, that is the correct answer, but it's not the correct format that we need from now on. Okay, so if we're looking at this right here, I want to know if there's anyone within the sound of my voice who can restate the question as a lead-in. Inside your chat, there is the question, and I'll, I'll copy and paste this question. Copy, paste. Who was the author of the short story, The Telltale Heart? It says Telltale Heart. That's not correct. I'm gonna change that because Mr. Neiman does not like typos. All right, there we go. Who was the author of the short story Telltale? What I'm asking right now is for you in the chat to see if you can only do this. Restate the question as a lead-in. That's all I need you to do. What would that look like for you right now to restate the question that I put in the chat? Who was the author of the short story, The Telltale Heart? Who said that? SG says the author of the short story Telltale Heart is absolutely correct. So if you're looking at the chat right now, who is that? CS? CS said the same thing. The author of the Telltale Heart was. That is perfect. That is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So if you look in the chat right now, you'll see two answers. Let me make sure I didn't miss someone up there. BRB, who was the author of the short? That's me writing it 8 times. DS, so you basically just asked me the same question, which is what we want to avoid. It's not that you want to ask the question at the start, it's that you want to restate the question as a lead-in for your answer. And CS and SG also, and they did that. So did AW. So you guys did a great job, you three right there. You said the author of the Telltale Heart was, the author of the short story The Telltale Heart is, the author of the short story Telltale Heart is. That's exactly what we need. So what we've done is we've taken that question and we've jumbled it, we've restated it as a lead-in to our answer. And so they even wrote the answer in there. So this says, restate the question as a lead-in, and the question was, who is the author of the Telltale Heart? So restating that question would be the author of the story, The Telltale Heart is, and then your answer is, the answer to the question is Edgar Allan Poe. That's absolutely correct. Now, as we go, tomorrow we're gonna work on those other two, but I wanna do another practice here. I wanna do probably 2 more questions, and I'll type these in the chat, so be ready. Let's go, and this is a question that we've already done, but the hope is, as we move as 8th graders, we sort of get away from this idea that I always supply at least 4 or 5 answers and you just select one. What we want is for you to be able to form a written response that is 8th grade level. So this is what it'll look like. So I'm gonna ask a question. What was it that drove the narrator insane? Is that even the right word? Is that correct? What was it that the narrator was driven insane by? Yeah, that works. I could ask this a couple different ways, but just the idea of what was it, and this is still within the realm of the telltale heart, what was it that drove the narrator insane? What was it? And so we know the correct answer, but I want to know if you can format it correctly using restate the question and then answer the question. Restate the question as a lead-in to your answer of the question. So that's what we're trying to do. AW, great job. CS, yes. CS, so you did just that first part, which is great. And then, yes, SG, great job. So if everybody else is looking, you can see that we got 3 great answers from the here's another one. DS, feel free to put that out to everyone. That's a great job. That is a great job. Hey, you should really put that out to everyone. I'm going to put DS's answer. He accidentally sent that to me only. Here's his answer. And very similar, that's DS's answer. Very similar to the other answers that we saw. So what you're doing is you're using the question as a lead-in. And what you end up doing, now, what you end up doing is creating a sentence that is very proper. It's very 8th grade level. It's very mature. What you're not doing is just answering the question, fast forwarding straight to this right here, because we know it was the old man's eye that drove the narrator insane. So if I ask you that question and you actually have to write or type, in this case, your correct answer would be the old man's eye. That is the correct answer. But it's the format that we need that helps you answer. And what will end up happening is when we get to the C and the E, this is going to be of ultra importance. The idea of restating the question and answering the question is going to be of utmost importance when you get to needing to cite evidence from the text and explain how that textual evidence supports your answer. So again, we're only going over the first 2. So here's the last question. The last question I will type in here. It is, why did the narrator rip up the floorboards? And I think floorboards is one word. So that's the question. Why did the narrator rip up the floorboards? Now, CS, you might do a good job and only do the first part, but you can certainly go to the second part, which is RA. So you can actually answer the question, but right now we're restating this question. This is huge. To be able to do this is taking a step from 7th to 8th grade. And if you show up in 9th grade and you do this every time you're asked a question, you will earn the respect of your teacher and you will begin to think clearly. Why did the narrator rip up the floorboards? Remember toward the end of the story, he's standing there talking to the cops and he rips up the floorboards and he says, here, it was the beating of his hideous heart. So even if you don't know why he did, you can still begin to answer this question with the proper format. Now they're starting to come through. Great job, DS. Great job, AW. Great job, CS. Great job, GD. Yep. Boom. So you're getting it. You're starting to get it. Now, here's the deal. Here's where this all comes into play. Tomorrow, after we go over the C and the E, great job, KG. Great job, KG. That's absolutely correct. Yes. So this matters. Because if you can do RA, CE will certainly, there's a part of me that wants to say will come easier, but I can't guarantee that's true. But I can say that it will definitely help you set up your answer in a better way. Okay, let's do one more just because I want to, because you guys are starting to get it and I want everybody to be a part of this. The last question will be, and you might not know the answer to this. How did the author Edgar Allan Poe build suspense in this story? So there's the question. Oh, whoops, I sent that to David and David only. My bad, David. David, feel free to send it to everyone because you're doing a great job. My bad, I shouldn't be saying names, but I'm allowed to hit one name, I think. What just happened there? Control C, Control V. Here's the question. How did the author Edgar Allan Poe build suspense in the story? There we go. Great job, AW. Great job. DS, feel free to send that to everyone because that's the correct answer. That is absolutely correct. Edgar Allan Poe built suspense by. Edgar Allan Poe builds suspense in his story by. That is wonderful. So once again, even if you're not 100% sure of what the answer is, that will certainly get you on the right path. And this is, AA, this is a true story. This is 100% absolutely true. When we, last year and the year before, when we did traditional classroom education, like the old school, the way we used to do it, when we would do that, when I would be walking around helping people with, let's say, this story, or, as we move forward to Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, or we move forward to something else, kids would write down, they would see the questions, and they would, let's say there were 5 questions on the paper, they would automatically do R and A, and then they would stop, and then they would go back and find the answers. So they would have 5 problems halfway done, and then they would go back and do the rest of the answers. So I would walk around and I would see 5 incomplete answers. And it would say, Edgar Allan Poe built suspense by, and then they would stop, and then they'd go on to the next one. They would restate that question and start to answer it, restate the next one. So there was a lot of interesting techniques that kids would use in order to make sure that they were using R, A, C, and E. And you have to be able to do the exact same thing. And again, it's not overly impossible. It's not crazy hard. The toughest thing is to remember to do it every time, especially when it's an easy answer, like who was the author of The Telltale Heart? Instantly in your brain, because you've been involved with this story now for a week, Edgar Allan Poe. So you're just going to write Edgar Allan Poe. But that would be not incorrect, but what we're looking for is the format, because not every answer is going to be that easy. And I have found in my teaching experience, when kids use R, A, C, E, the C and the E come much easier when they do the R and the A, because it gets them in the flow. It gets them in the flow, like Happy Gilmore. Gets them in the flow. They're feeling it. Doing the happy dance. That's right. So the author had to build suspense. See, and GD, you might not even know the answer to that question, but you are at least on the right path. You are beginning to put words on paper in order to get to that point. And now you can just think about it a little more. And the way you have it written there would certainly help me. If I wrote that down, it would certainly help me get to that answer. So today, we're talking about R and A, of how to correctly answer a question, R, A, and then tomorrow we're going to finish with C and E, and you're going to actually begin to answer questions not by selecting letter A, B, C, D, or E, but you're actually going to type in an answer into the space provided, and then I'll go through and I'll grade that. And it will be on the Telltale Heart, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to provide you a theatrical presentation of the Telltale Heart. You're going to watch that theatrical presentation, and then in the questions, a couple of the questions are, what's the difference? Spot the difference type of thing. And another one of the questions is, does seeing it as a theatrical presentation change things for you. Because it is suspense, so they do certain things, and I don't want to give too much away, but they do certain things in this theatrical presentation that might help to build suspense, or certainly changes the way I hear it. I'll say that. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. And as we move forward, because again, RACE, when you get to cite textual evidence and explain, that is much more difficult to do than just restating the question and answering the question. So be ready for that. And I'll ask questions tomorrow. We'll do the exact same thing tomorrow that we did today as far as practicing what it looks like, RACE. Because on the questions that you have, you're gonna have to actually type in some answers. So, and I want you to be able to do this right here every single time starting tomorrow. Also, be sure to take your STAR test. Last but certainly not least, Ms. Thompson wants to give you guys some definite words of love and affection and care. No? Hey.
Yeah, I still am missing a lot of work from people, my usual suspects. So again, get that in terms went out last week. Conferences are this Wednesday and next